So my proposition that that students in college and university should have a free education. My first point is that there's families out there who can't help their kids help pay for their full college education, and it shows that currently only 30% of students that attended college only have graduated, which shows that 70% of the students drop out. And this is according to the article that I read, but it's called the Why All Public Higher Education Should Be Free by Bob Samuels. And if we had a free education, I believe that, or I don't believe, but it proves that the graduation rates would increase by a lot more. It would give like students a less reason to not fail. For example, like if we had free education, it would help the students like, I can still be here, I can still keep going. And the only thing students really have to worry about is dorming and about buying for books. And it shows that in one of the main problems about like students going to college and having to worry about so much is that they believe that they're going into debt and they have to get a loan from the bank. And it shows that in the year of 2012 and 2013, it showed that 66% of student loans have increased since the past decade. And students shouldn't have to take a loan from the bank. Businesses and companies want the smartest and the best of students. They want students to be educated and have high skills. And if students had more motivation to go to school and have like an option to actually go instead of having to worry about money, they can get their education, they can get their degree, they can get their master's, they can become more successful, get a better job, and create more of what they believe in. Also, if students wouldn't have to worry about funding for their schools, but only have to take charge of their dorming and books and other classes, if the government worried about like basically like having to, where would the money come from? It would just basically come from the dorming, the books, and other necessities. Also, if, for example, if students don't have to worry about paying for school and classes, they worry more about like their car or renting. They have more motivation to buy a house or rent or an apartment, and also like the small things like food and whatever they need inside their homes. And while they're doing that, they're paying for the taxes, which also goes back to the government as well. My second point is colleges can concentrate more on resourceful things and businesses, like student population. For example, they can worry about like the class sizes, and if they're worried about like overpopulation, they can have online classes as well. And then the federal government doesn't have to worry about rating colleges and be dependent. Tax rates could increase for the wealthy, and then programs could be made to even those who are eligible for a free education if they don't know, like if they're kind of iffy about the free education thing. There's a quote in this article I read about college should be free, the pros and cons and alternatives. It says that from 2006 to 2013, the percentage of KPS graduates, which isn't a program they created, or they're thinking about, graduates who earned a college level of credential within 6 years of completing high school rose from roughly 36% to about 48%. And the impact has been the greatest on their district's low-income students, who have increased their probability of attending and completing a four-year college by over 50%. That kind of shows that like, if free education was a possible thing, more students would attend, more students would have a better innovation to succeed. And then government could force schools to focus on research and instructions for the academic schools. Like I said, the government can get back their money from tax revenues, because students can also, they have to worry about other things as well, including jobs. They can also get back from students because they're more eligible. They have high advanced skills from earlier experiences from school, and it could basically help America's economy by the skill gaps. For example, like it creates a more educated workplace, and the population could have better critical thinking skills, leading to innovation. Lastly, one of my main points is basically equality, and not by racial. I meant by men and women. Everyone can basically go to school if they want to go. Students who can't receive this education outside the country will be able to. there's other countries in the world that have free education and has worked for them. And it can also help students make more smarter life choices. For example, they have more freedom to pick a major, they have more options, they feel more freely to do what they want to do. And this can also basically help all students go to college. So my conclusion is that everyone should go to college, and it should be free for everyone, because everyone should succeed.
All right, Evelyn, well, the proposition is clearly identified. That part's good. Problem is it's a claim of policy, which is a problem, because that's not what the assignment is. You're supposed to be doing a claim of fact. There's a claim of fact behind your claim of policy that I think would be pretty straightforward, that there are substantial advantages to having free college education, or that providing a free college education would produce a beneficial effect. It's not hard to translate this into a claim of fact, but you keep coming back to it, and at the end you come back to it again saying students should have a free education. And at the end you actually have two claims of policy that you finish up with. Everyone should go to college, and it should be free. So those are both claims of policy. You need a claim of fact. Right. There's not really any preview of what the supporting structure is going to be, and that's a problem. There's a lot of random information that you present at the beginning. Frequently, it's just commentary or opinions without any evidence to back it up, and it just doesn't feel like it's building to a particular argument. In the body of the speech, it sounds like you have 3 points, but I couldn't tell you what the first and the third point are. The second point, you do have a signpost on it. There appears to be a claim, but it's awkwardly phrased, so I'm not exactly sure what it is that you want us to believe here. We're back to, I think there are some vague generalizations about the need for college education, some vague generalizations about cost issues or what the costs are, but what's missing is a development of these points into a sequence of secondary inferences that would allow us to reach the conclusion that you want us to get to. So, for example, you need an argument that says, here's the first assumption. You've got an assumption in your speech that the reason that people don't finish, the one statistic that I thought was really useful, 70% don't finish. Your assumption is that the reason that they don't finish is because they don't have any money. I didn't hear any evidence that suggests that that's the reason that people drop out. There are plenty of reasons that people drop out of college that have nothing to do with whether or not they have money. And a lot of it has to do with a lack of academic preparation. Sometimes it has to do with changes in their life situations and circumstances. I'm sure some do drop out because they can't afford to continue, but that's the only part that would be affected by what you're talking about. But I have no idea what part of the population that would be. So you have to have some information that shows that there's an economic barrier to people being able to go to college. If we're talking about some colleges, definitely there's an economic barrier. You can't afford to go to some colleges. But in California, for instance, almost everybody can attend a community college, and the costs are minimal in comparison. For example, when you say free, I don't know if you're talking about tuition free, or we're going to pay for people's books and housing and everything while they go to school. We're basically, it'll be like you're joining the military, only you're joining college, and we'll clothe and feed and educate you for that time period. I don't know exactly what format you're talking about. So that's another problem. There's ambiguity in even the policy that you're advocating, which you're not supposed to be doing, what that policy would be. So that's problematic. So you need to be a little bit sharper about defining what those secondary points are. So you need a point that says economics are the reason that people can't complete college, and you need some proof on that, you need to show us that people cannot obtain assistance or support. So when you say they get a loan from the bank, well, most college loans nowadays don't come from banks. They come from the Department of Education loan system. You know, that's basically the way it works nowadays. And so you're basically borrowing money from the federal government. What you're now saying is, let's just have the federal government give us money instead of lend us money, and we won't be paying it back, and there would be some advantage to that. But that requires, again, an explanation about what the existing financing system is and why it doesn't work. And that needs to be a lot clearer. The advantages of doing this might be numerous, but all you've given us is some kind of vague suggestions. Well, there's a skills gap, or we'll be able to tax people who are making money once they have jobs, and that's a little unclear as to what it is that we're going to get back in the long run. This is not that complicated an argument to find some proof for, that new economies require more well-trained employees, people who are better prepared to take on a variety of responsibilities, people who have specialized skills, and that we are not providing that. And the reason we're not providing that is that people can't afford to go to college. I mean, that's basically what your argument is, those 3 points. And you need to say it much more clearly than you did. All right, thank you. Oops.